I've had that happen where like one of my leases, the landowner had a friend that had a lawn mowing service and he came out and buzz cut our clover in the summertime. And I was like, no, I saw it on trail, like on the cell cam. It was just going through and I didn't reach out in time. I didn't catch him in time. I was about shit my pants when I saw this guy mowing through there. Grass is just, things are just flying up everywhere. So, all right, welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drury, and this is episode number 382. We got Forrest from Terry's Farm, the farm manager, the camera guy, the guy that does it all, the killer. What's up, Forrest?
Not much. Just enjoying a nice summer day. Got off work a little while to hop on here with you, so excited about it.
I should have picked a hotter day to have you on.
Yeah, I know. It could have waited till it was like 90s in the 90s later on this week. But
yeah. So I wanted to have you on because usually when we get a lot of requests for, of course, you guys, Mark, Terry, you, Forrest, Wade, or Perry, Wade, just to kind of give us updates on what you're up to there at the farms, kind of what your, food plot architecture, what your plans and everything that you're doing now to kind of try to succeed there in the fall. So I figured it'd be a good time to start kind of going through some of those as we're working on the summertime plantings. And really by this point, you probably have a lot of the actual planting done outside of the fall plots, right?
Yeah, all the corn and soybeans, and then any kind of clover maintenance planting stuff we did this spring. It's all done. All of it's up and growing. So we're onto the maintenance stages.
Is it too late to plant corn yet, or not? As we're filming this, it's early June. Is it too late to plant corn?
I know there's still some guys, some of the big farmers around us are still planting some. It's getting right to the end of that window. There's still plenty of time to plant soybeans, but corn, it'd be getting a little bit late. You may want a corn that matures a little bit faster. I know some of the different corn varieties, it may take like 100 to 120 days to mature, but they do have some 90 to 100 day that you could possibly get away with as long as we get the rain.
That's the problem. I mean, we've had a lot of rain. You look at DeerCast rain station and it feels like we've had more rain than we've had in the previous couple of years. Now, of course, usually you're going to get that in the spring, but I don't recall it being so late into May and even into June here, like we were still getting decent amount of rain. Now, that being said, it looks like there's a hot stretch coming, and you kind of, in the back of your mind, you always wonder, all right, is this the beginning of the drought? Because we've had it so bad the last couple of summers. But are you guys seeing a lot of rain up there too?
The last couple of weeks, it's actually dried off. We've gotten a few little shots. We got a 1/4 inch on Saturday. We had 3/10, I think last Wednesday. But we haven't really gotten any of those big rains that you guys have been getting down south here as of late. We were a little bit ahead of that annual rainfall, like you said, in May and early June there. We were a couple inches ahead, but I think now we're almost back to about even where we want to be for that annual rainfall.
Gotcha. Okay, so you talked a little bit about the clover maintenance, and you even came down and helped me on my farm down there in Rawls, and you brought the mixture that you guys, you and Wade and Perry have kind of perfected. We get asked this all the time on what that concoction is, because I know there's, I think most people know about the basics of what to spray, but you guys have kind of a mixture of a few different things. Do you have that formula that you can share? Because we get asked about it all the time.
Yeah. So when I mix up a tank, this is 60 gallons of water, and this is going to cover about 5 acres. It may be, depending on your speed you're driving, you may cover a tiny bit less, but I shoot for about 5 acres, and I use DeerCast maps to try to keep track of my acreages as I'm spraying. But it's 32 ounces of Imazamox or IMOX, and that's going to be your broadleaf killer. It's best to spray those broadleaf weeds when they're below 8 to 10 inches tall. They get any above that, this chemical, it has a little bit of a tougher time killing them when they get a little taller. Then 96 ounces of clethodim, which that's going to be your grass killer. and then 32 ounces of liquid ammonium sulfate, or or about 5 pounds of, if you use the crystallized ammonium sulfate. That's what I use. And then on some of those broadleaf, say someone isn't able to spray um, their clover earlier in the spring, then you get some of those like maybe a mare's tail or thistles or something that gets a little bit taller in there, that Amazamox is not going to kill. There's a totally separate chemical we use for that, and you have to spray it by itself, and it's called 2,4-DB, or Butarac 200, is usually what the bottle we get says, and you spray that 3 quarts to the acre, and it's better to spray that like in a 60-gallon tank. We'll only cover 3 acres with that. You want to get a really good coating, so you want to spray about 20 gallons of total product per acre, water and 2,4-DB included, and that'll kill some of those bigger broadleafs if you're having issues with them.
So like on my clover plot, it was not even a full acre. It was like 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah.
And we hadn't done any maintenance to it all year yet. So this was maybe 3 weeks ago. I mowed it, and then a week later you came down and you sprayed it. Now I had quite a bit of thistle there in the middle of the plot. So did you spray? What was the plan of attack for that?
So went through, and like you had mowed before, so obviously whenever you mow a plant, it's going to stress it a little bit and it's going to make it a little bit weaker. So we just sprayed it with the Amazamox, clethodim, and ammonium sulfate mixture, and hoping that Imox, because those plants, those thistles were a little bit weak, that it may kill them. And we're just going to watch those, and if it by chance doesn't kill them all the way, we may go in and later on and spot spray those with that 2,4-DB.
Now that was a clover plot that we planted I'm trying to think, maybe last February or March. No, let me think about this. It was probably March when we planted it. And, really outside of, I think maybe one mowing there in September and then spraying it probably around that time, we really hadn't done much maintenance to it. And the clover, the biologic non-typical clover I thought looked pretty good. Yeah, what were your thoughts when you were looking through there spraying it? I mean, I felt like with a little bit of maintenance, it was probably going to be a pretty damn good food plot.
Yeah, it looked really good. I mean, real even all the way across the plot. I mean, some of the clover they were starting to show some flower, so it was heading out, good new growth. That's where we're going in and mowing it. I'm assuming you probably nip the tops off of some of those, which will be good, kind of reseed a little bit, and get some of those fresh new shoots coming up. That's what those deer like. And then obviously going in and spraying it and cleaning it up, it should be a real pretty carpet of clover there pretty quick here.
Yeah, I didn't mow it too. I just, it was the brush hog was pretty high when I mowed it, but I had a lot of grasses, and the thistle and all the other stuff is really what I was trying to get. I didn't really want to get down too close to it. And like you said, just kind of nip it a little bit. So, it's all new. It's really all new to me still. I've done it a few times, but a lot of times, obviously, Scott had helped, and he was the one out doing the work. So I wanted to make sure I didn't give it a buzz cut, because I've had that happen where, like, one of my leases, the landowner had a friend that had a lawn mowing service, and he came out and he, with a commercial like 0-turn lawnmower, came out and buzz cut our clover in the summertime. And I was like, no, I saw it on trail, like on the cell cam. It was just going through, and I didn't reach out in time. I didn't catch him in time. I was about shit my pants when I saw this guy mowing through there. The grass is just, things are just flying up everywhere. So it did come back though. And I guess Terry always talks about that, kind of how resilient clover can be. And that kind of proved it to me right there. It was like, all right, that we totally shaved it, and it came back and it looked great. So yeah, I guess for maybe a amateur wannabe farmer like me, it's an easier food plot to maintain once you get it in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it comes back every year, and I mean, like you said, it's super resilient. So here in the summer months, even if it does dry up, it'll look kind of brown and crispy and ugly and stuff. But man, you get just a little bit of rain on it in the fall there, and it greens right back up and starts looking pretty.
So that'd be my next question. so we mowed it, end of May, sprayed it end of May. You just let that go all summer, and then maybe right there, late August, early September, would you go in and mow it one more time and spray it again, or do you spray it one more time at some point in the summer?
That's a lot of people have differing opinions on there. Like there's some guys that go and they mow their clover religiously every 2 weeks, no matter what it's like. Some guys wait for a rain. Terry and I up here, we typically sometimes we may clip it early in the spring, but our deer population is pretty high here and they keep it nipped down pretty good. So we typically let it roll all year. And don't we I may spray it again depending on if there's a bunch of weeds in it throughout the summer. I may look at it here in another month or so because all our fields are pretty clean right now. Um, may go in and spray it here in a month or so, or maybe even a little bit later on towards the fall, and then we may go in depending on what the rain looks like there in late August, early September, right before the season, and may just nip the top of it and then potentially hit it with a liquid fertilizer just to give it a real nice little shot in the arm there and hopefully green it up real pretty right before the season there. But that all just depends on what the temperatures and the rainfall is looking like closer to that season time frame.
Would you put any liquid fertilizer on right now or no?
You could. Typically if you're like typically what we do is we put like I rented a fertilizer cart because we got quite a few acres of clover here, but I rented a fertilizer cart and got a fertilizer mixture and put it on there in May because it's typically better to get some rain right after you fertilize. Just allows those plants to really suck it up. So if you had a rainfall event coming where you had, say, a 80-90% chance of rain, if you haven't fertilized your clover this spring, you could go in and hit it with some fertilizer. But if there's no rain coming and if you're using a pelletized fertilizer, it's not going to dissolve and you may get some evaporation and lose a little bit of it. If you're using a liquid, you're probably better off putting it on a little bit in the evening so it doesn't evaporate as well. Gives it the night to soak in. You could do that if you wanted to, but you may be better off waiting until the fall when it's starting to cool down and getting some rain again.
Gotcha. Because you can burn it up pretty easily, couldn't you?
Yeah,
If
depending
it's
on what
hot.
fertilizer you use, if some of it gets a little bit too hot with maybe some of that nitrogen and stuff, you could burn it a little bit. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so this time of year, if you guys have everything you need to put in the ground until the fall plots. So what are you doing to kind of maintain, or what are you doing around the farm? Like I think I saw a story the other day. You're putting up hot wire around, what was it, your beans?
Yeah, yeah. So I got done. I sprayed all my post-emergent chemical on corn, and then I've been hot wiring the beans. Most of our beans are in that 3 to 6 inch range right now. And typically, when they first pop up, the deer don't nip them. So you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, and they pop up to get hot wire on them. Then they start hitting them pretty hard. And when they're that little, they're susceptible to deer just nip them off. And I mean, you end up with just a little stem sticking up that's maybe an inch tall, and it can kill that plant. So we try to get hot wire on them before they're starting to nip them.
Take me through the hot wire process because it seems like it's a lot of work to me. I mean, it seems like you guys are putting double and triple strands up, and because they seem like they one single strand isn't going to cut it, is it?
No, we haven't had luck with it. I know a lot of guys they'll run. Typically, we run two widths of wire, or so I two strands of wire, and they're about, I don't know, 3.5 feet apart probably. And on the inside, usually we run 3 strands of wire, and on the outside we run two, so 5 total. Run those around, and we kind of stagger them a little bit so the deer can't just walk through them. Those 2 outside ones, I like to keep them a little bit tighter, like maybe 10 inches apart. And then on the inside, the bottom 2 are maybe a foot, and then I go up another 16 inches or so and put the top wire there. And just having that depth of field there, it's like if a deer really wanted to, they could probably jump over it. But having that depth of field, it makes them think twice about it. Like, man, I got to clear 2 fences here instead of just one. And we tried doing 2 and 1 and 2 and 2, and our deer density is so high up here that we found that running 3 on the inside and 2 on the outside has been what's successful for us.
So where are you picking up the equipment to put this stuff out? Like what, just a farm and home type store, or what?
Yeah, like we got a Buckeyes up here, and they have a whole, usually it's back in the farm section, kind of by the animal feed. There's usually a whole fencing section, and There's different kinds of wire. I mean, you could have smooth metal wire, braided circular, like a braided ribbon almost. We go with the braided circular wire just because it's super easy to put out, super easy to pick up. We use those garden hose reels. And at the end of the year, we're able to just unhook it all and we can just roll it up on those garden hose reels. It makes it super easy to store it over the winter. And then we just get little plastic insulator clips and use T-posts. I know they sell a bunch of different kinds of fence posts for hot wire, and we've tried plastic ones. We've tried the fiberglass rods, and the T-posts are just more sturdy. It allows you to pull that wire a little bit tighter. And it's a little bit, if you do get a deer that tries to jump it and they get tangled up in the wire, it's not going to break them and stuff like that. Your wire may just break or an insulator clip or something. So it's a lot easier to repair.
And then what's the thing giving it the electricity?
Yeah, and then we're running a solar powered unit. It just has a positive and a negative. You hook your wires to, and then we have a ground rod. I've been using the last couple of years, instead of running a ground rod, I just tie my negative off to one of my T-posts that I'm using to hold up the wire, and that's been working really good for me. But the solar powered units, we run a little bit bigger one. I think ours are rated for 25 miles. In my opinion, it's worth spending the extra $30 to get the bigger unit. You're going to get a little bit more powerful shock, and it just seems to hold its charge a little bit better.
Have you ever been shocked?
Oh, a couple times. Definitely.
All right. So you got the hot wire up, plots are in. What else are you guys working on? I know, there's Terry has feels like a billion sets on his farm. So are you just kind of methodically going to each one and trimming lanes and checking straps and, making sure everything's good for fall, or what's going on this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, getting into that, I kind of got a schedule every summer, and I'm getting into the tree stands and box blinds. So basically, I got a list of all of them in my phone. Just go through, and when I get to every stand, check every strap, make sure it's not too tight, or if they need replaced. I'd ordered a bunch of them, put new straps on the climbing sticks, make sure those tree stands aren't, because we don't pull our sets every year, we leave them in the tree. So some of those trees that are a little bit smaller, they may be growing a little quicker and trying to grow around the tree stand. So make sure we get them out so we don't kill the tree. Just make sure everything's safe, check all the stands, make sure all the bolts are good, make sure the cables going that are holding the platform up are good, and then climb up in there, check, make sure all our shooting lanes are good. So trim those. I'm also weed eating our access lanes right now. So typically, if you go through now, I mean, since it's starting to possibly dry up here a little bit, if I take a weed eater and weed eat our access lane, get it really nice and clean, typically later on in the summer, I may go back and check and hit a few of them again. But typically, if I weed eat them really low right now, our access lane is going to be good for the fall. So making sure all those tree stands are safe, and then going to the box blinds, go to them, kind of clean out any trash, like using paper towels to clean the windows, clean out shake out the carpet, sweep them out, get any bugs out of there. And then we also put medicated cattle ear tags in our boxes every summer. That just seems to help keep the flies down. They're like a green. We found the green. They stink really bad, but I believe it's Bayer, I think is the company name. Don't quote me on that, but it's a green ear tag we buy, and we just put a zip tie around there, hang it in the box blind somewhere. Then it'll stink for a week, but by the fall when you go in there, there's no scent, but it helps keep the bugs out over the summer.
I just saw it. It wasn't a strip. I just saw something. I almost screenshot it and sent to you. And I think it was on YouTube or else social media, one of the two. But anyways, it was something where it also repels flies and bugs, and somebody was just putting it out in their. Oh, I know what it was. There's a hunt, like a hunting Facebook group or whatever. I don't know if it was a food plot one or if it was a DIY box blinds or whatever, but this person used a strip of some sort, and it kind of seemed to me like it had whatever is in those ear tags, something like that, but it was in the strip, and they were putting them out in their blinds right now. And I've been seeing a lot of that. I know the Bomars, have used this, but that fly catcher or whatever, I've been seeing
Yeah.
that quite a bit more too. I don't know if anybody's ever actually put those in like a box blind, or you just kind of put them outside near them. But I've seen those too. So that I don't really in my like hawk blinds and muddy box blinds, I don't really see a ton of bugs and flies and stuff. But I know like some of those older homemade blinds that you guys had, there's usually quite a bit, which is crazy to me because they're pretty scent proof. Like they're pretty locked tight.
Yeah, it's amazing how it seems like a fly can wiggle, seems like right through the wall sometimes. Like I don't know how they get in there, but it putting those tags in there definitely seems to repel them a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think about like the box blinds and stuff, I know some of the extra steps that we go through, like, those muddy and hawk blinds are well made, especially the new ones. Like I know the new muddy ones came out with like a steel construction frame, and that's what the hawk ones were the last couple of years. But we'll go in and we'll tighten them up a little bit, like tighten the windows and like the screws or whatever on the windows, just to kind of make sure it's a little tighter, that seals up a little bit better. But you guys also go in and you'll actually put something in the around the ceiling, right, to kind of seal it up a little better.
Yeah, we started taking that like spray foam, the great stuff, and go around the outside on the where the it's kind of like a little lip or whatever where the roof sits on there, and we put some great stuff around there. And then on the inside, we just buy garage door weather steel stripping, and we just slide it up on the inside, in between the roof and the sidewall there.
Yeah, those those blinds are like I said, especially the newer ones. The last few years here, they're really well made and they're pretty scent proof on their own. But man, you add you do those couple extra little things, and I can't tell you how many times that we were hunting them the last year or two on wrong winds, and really not having much of an issue.
Yeah, they're definitely a game changer as far as containing your scent. I mean, you get in there and get everything sealed up good and get all your windows closed and stuff, you can get away with a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Gotta be quick when you open the window up, but you can
yeah.
get away.
You better be ready. Your scent's just puking out, as Terry would call it.
Yeah, you open it and you just get that giant scent bubble, and it's like you better hurry.
Yeah, I never got so this when we were hunting those last couple of days of the season this last year for Titan, when he came out, I feel like, and now this was super cold, and so we had like a heater running, but you could actually see the hot air kind of go out and the cold air kind of come in. It was a visual, of kind of what probably your scent's doing. I've never really had a visual of what that probably looked like or, what it's doing. But because of the extreme temperatures, we more or less got a visual of a cloud going out and cold air coming in when we opened that window. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's always nice on those high pressure days when you open the window and you see the steam rising, and it's like, well, we're gonna get away with a little more here.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump ahead and talk about the deer, the herd in general, because you guys, you had a really good deer that you were going to be, chasing this year. A neighbor kid ended up killing them the first day of gun season. What else is there that you guys are, are there other just mature old bucks that you guys are really looking forward to? Or I guess you really don't have the inventory just yet. We're a little early for that to know what, if anything blew up yet, or are you tracking it yet, or just kind of waiting until July?
Oh, we're waiting. We won't put cameras out till early to mid July usually. And typically, some of the bucks we're potentially looking for, they're ones I don't think really summer here. So like typically we don't get pictures of them anyways until they'll show up hardhorn later on in the fall. But from driving around, and talking to some different people that do have cameras out, it seems like with the wet spring, we've had some really good growth so far this year. Like I've seen some bucks that are pretty far developed already, just on social media, and some friends have been sending me some pictures of some, and it's like, man, they look like they're packing on the inches pretty good this year. But we don't. I mean, we got some mature deer that we're going to be looking for next year. I mean, there's a couple deer that are really old that they may not have the biggest rack, but we have a lot of history with them, and we're hoping to close those chapters. And then there's a couple that were a couple 4-year-olds last year that they definitely had the potential. It's kind of had those nice spindly frames, kind of those deer you want where they could potentially blow into something really nice. So we'll be looking for them this fall.
Have you noticed? I felt like, I feel like we almost always have a wet spring, but it depending on how bad the drought is in the summer, can that just shut off the growth? You know?
I mean, I'm not a biologist by no means, but from what I've seen, and from talking to like Terry and Mark and some other people, it seems like when it does come to the drought, it may suppress it a little bit, but as long as they get a really good start, um, usually they'll like if having on the wet springs, usually they're a little bit bigger. Um, but it also is kind of on a deer by deer basis. Sometimes it seems like last summer we were real dry there, and obviously like Mick Dundee, Terry's big one. I mean, he blew up into an absolute giant, but he was one of the only deer that really exploded last year that we had. I think it is partially the weather and stuff, but it also can be just a deer by deer basis and their genetics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, what else? What else is going on right now? Did we miss anything, or anything that we should be thinking of or doing on the properties or getting prepared for? I know, like I've already started shooting my bow and kind of getting ready in that regard, but I also have an early elk hunt in Idaho. What are you doing on that side of things?
I mean, it never hurts to start shooting. I haven't shot a ton, but I mean, just starting to build those muscles back a little bit and start getting in that groove, and start shooting here big time here in I don't know, a month or so maybe, or maybe even a little sooner than that. But then, yeah, just I mean, keep those tree stand sets, make sure they're all good. Um, I don't know. I'm sure your dad will come up with a list of other things for me to do here pretty quick.
The random things that may or may not really need to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, just I mean, just keeping those lanes mowed and I mean, go in. Now's the time to get in there into the timber if you're gonna go in and do stuff. Now's the time to do it. Get it all done, get out of there, and then leave your intrusion or don't intrude getting on towards the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Well, we're going to jump into some of the question of the day, the wildlife word of the day, all that good stuff. So, are you ready for this, Forrest?
Oh yeah, I guess.
All right. So the question of the day is brought to you by Deer Grow. Better food plots, bigger deer. That's actually the liquid fertilizer you were talking about. We were just you're getting a shipment here the next day or so from the folks over at Deer Grow. So you used that quite a bit last year too, right?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely use it, especially on our green plots. It makes a huge difference.
So were you putting it on when you guys plant your fall plot? Are you're using that stuff within a few days of it starting to come up? Then you go in and put it on, or do you actually apply it when you're planting?
The plot start in the man, I'm totally blanking on the name of the other product. It kind of breaks up the hard pan a little bit. We were putting those on, I mean, right? I mean, you put your seed down and go and put the plot start on there right away, before that plant is germinated. Then the plot boost is a little bit later on when those plants actually get up and you go and spray it over.
Yeah.
And then like obviously the clover too, like we'll give it plot boost as well.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we got a question from one of the rack packers, Ben Laska. He says, what are some steps the Druries have taken to drought-proof food plots? The August rains seem to be fewer and far between. Are you changing varieties / seed, plot types, etc.? So you're a great one to ask this because you have a lot of watering that you get stuck doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, last few years put over 100,000 gallons on each fall. So, um, definitely, we've been taking a lot of our plots. We've been transitioning more and more stuff to clover, like we talked about earlier in the podcast. It may dry up and get kind of crispy there, in the summertime and may look brown and dead. But I mean, it does not take much rain at all to green it right back up in the fall. I mean, you get a little half-inch shot and then maybe a 3/4 of an inch rain or something like that. It may not be enough to get a real pretty big green plot if you planted, say, like a maximum or a radish or something like that. But that clover, man, it'll green it right back up and get those deer on it. Um, and then also, your dad and I, literally, we've been talking about this pretty frequently recently. We're going to transition some of our plots this fall to more of a cereal grain mixture. In the past, we've done a lot of maximum winter bulbs and sugar beets, radishes. Some of those bulb plants, well, they're like I believe those plants, and don't quote me on this, but they're like 70 to 80% water is
Oh
that
boy.
plant. So they take a lot of water to grow. They take a lot of water to maintain. So we're going to transition and try to use some of those mixtures, maybe like a winter grass or a last bite or green patch plus, some of those other biologic mixtures that have more oats, wheat, rye, some of those plants that we've noticed in the past. We've planted those bulb mixtures, and I water, and we end up replanting them later on. And we use those cereal grain mixtures, the oats, rye, wheat, and they don't take near the water to keep them going. You just get a little bit of a rain, and they're going to do a lot better than a bulb plant. So if you're worried about a drought and you don't think you're going to get a lot of grain or a lot of rain, you're better off going with a cereal grain mixture versus a bulb
Are
mixture.
you drilling that in, or what? How are you guys? Are you tilling your food plots and spreading it, or how are you putting that in?
You could do either. We've drilled some of them using those PH Outdoors drills, or in some of our smaller plots, we've gone in and just worked it up, seeded over it, and then I just have a piece. I mean, it's kind of redneck, but just a piece of cattle panel and just drag it over it and just get it barely covered, and then just kind of let the rain cover it. We try to plant it within a couple of days of the rain, because if you're broadcasting it, the one thing you got to worry about with that with the cereal grain mixture, it's a little bit bigger seed and birds can see them.
Mm.
And if you don't get them covered a little bit or drag it with something, birds could come in and eat a lot of your seed before it has a chance to germinate.
Are we too late to for those just really starting to think about deer season? Are we too late to plant a clover plot like a we're at the we're starting to get into these dry months? Are you just too late, and are you better off doing a spring plant or a fall planting? I know we typically do last bite, and then we'll it has clover in there, but then we'll go back and frost heat it in February. So are we too late right now to try to get a good one in?
In my opinion, yeah, it's getting pretty late. I mean, some of those rains, you're not getting them as frequently. When that clover is real new and real tender, it's nice to get a shot of rain on it. Like if you had a way to water it, I think you could get away with it. But it's just, I mean, we got some of these 90-degree temperatures and stuff. I mean, if you get a rain and germinate and you get a little clover plant that's 2 inches tall, and then you get 4 or 5 days of 90-degree weather with no water on it, I think it's just going to fry them. And that root structure is not going to get developed enough. So I believe you're better off waiting to the fall at this point and doing a last bite mixture and add a little extra. It's already got non-typical in it, but add a little extra non-typical clover in the fall. And then, like you said, going and frost seed in the spring. I think that'd be your best bet at this point.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, cool. Before we move on the watering side of it, like that's not really feasible for a lot of people. Like you guys have several ponds. You actually put in, a pond for one whole side of the farm to do this kind of stuff. But your average guy, say he's just got a four-wheeler and, he's pull behind implements and stuff like that. Like, is there anything they can do to try to affect it? Or, Dad's always like, oh, you should water. It's like, man, first of all, we're like hours away from the farms. Second of all, we don't have any of the equipment. Like, it just never makes any sense. So I moved everything to Clover pretty much. So is there a solution there that you could think of for your kind of smaller DIY guy?
I mean, if you could maybe possibly do a micro plot, like something that's like a quarter acre, half acre. You may be able to actually make a difference on that with like, say, I don't know, 100 or 200 gallon tank. Because I mean, an inch of water on an acre is 27,000 gallons. So obviously that's a ton of water to be moving. But if you potentially had a smaller plot and were able to, I mean, just put a little bit on, you could kind of calculate your acreage and do the math and stuff and figure out how many gallons it would take to equal, say, a quarter inch or a half inch. And that's where what I was saying, like with the clover or cereal grains, they don't take near the water that a bulb plot would take. So if you go into it with that strategy, like, okay, I have a smaller water tank, I can't put the 1 inch of water on it every day, but if I could do, say, put a quarter inch on it every 3 or 4 days, or even, I don't know, even if you put a tank there and gravity drained it somehow or whatever, some of those plant species that don't take near the water, you may possibly be able to make a little bit of a difference there by doing that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We got the wildlife word. So today's wildlife word is brought to you by Nutrient Ag Solutions. with you to tackle the unique challenges you face at every stage of the season. So, all right, we have the phrase here. What is a nictitating membrane? Nictitating membrane. A, the wall of the amniotic sac that carries the fawn prior to birth. B, the discoloration of the tarsal gland on a deer's hind leg during the rut. C, a transparent or translucent third eyelid that can be drawn across the eye to protect and moisten it while maintaining vision. D, the portion of an antler pedicle that must die prior to shedding. All right, so what do you think here? Nictitating membrane, Forrest.
Membrane. I'm thinking it's either A or C. I'm gonna go with C with the extra eyelid.
Bold move. I was going to go with A, the amniotic sac that carries the fawn prior to birth. Ben, do you have the answer to this? Producer Ben? All right. Jim in the background there in the audience. It's C. Forrest, you animal. A transparent or translucent third eyelid that can be drawn across the eye to protect and moisten it while maintaining vision. So I didn't know that was a thing. You went to school you didn't go to school, you're not a biologist. How'd you know this stuff? You went to school for like plants and...
Yeah, I was a forestry major, but because I did some wildlife stuff, I had some pretty advanced biology classes.
Why are you so awesome?
I just got lucky.
Ben's laughing. Ben. All right. We got some shout outs. We don't have some shout outs. We need some shout outs. Be sure to leave us a shout out. All right. So to leave us a shout out, all you got to do is go to wherever you listen or watch the podcast and leave us a review, leave us a remark, good, bad, whatever. We'll read it. So leave us some shout outs. All right. We got a couple new Rack Pack members. Rack Pack is a private Facebook group, and all you got to do is type in 100% Wild Rack Pack, and you'll answer a couple questions, and you'll be in the community. All right. A couple new names this week. We got Colin DeBoer, Austin Jenkins, and Logan Zorn. Welcome to the club, and welcome to the shenanigans. All right. Well, that's all I got this week, Forrest. You got any parting shots for us?
Not really. Just going to get back to trimming tree stand sets here.
Well, enjoy. This is like the last nice day, low humidity before we get into the 90s. So enjoy. Be careful.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
All right. Well, appreciate you jumping on. Until next time, peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.